Hi everyone, sorry for today. Just have been told you and get everything set up. Well, I'll start presenting. So thank you for sticking around this late in the day. So I think this walkthrough fits in nicely with what the previous presenter was saying about CI/CD, and you can think of pre-commit as like a sandwich between your IDE and GitHub. Uh, so what's your workflow with that pre-commit? You write some code, you commit it, you maybe run some local tests, you git push, and then it all runs in GitHub Actions, and GitHub Actions finds failing tests, finds linting errors, maybe you run auto formatting in GitHub as well, and checks all of those. You run maybe type checkers in GitHub, and then GitHub catches those, which is great. But it's better if you could run it on your local computer before it went to GitHub, so that you don't have to wait for that feedback loop. So what if you could check these issues before comment, right? That's the thing. That's why it's in the name. It's pre-comment, so before comment. So what's the workflow of pre-commit? So pre-commit has, the way you do it is there's a configuration file and you define a set of rules. And then those rules could be any arbitrary tool, but usually they'd be things like linting and auto formatting. And these hooks or rules would be executed on every Git commit. So remember, when you're doing Git, it's distributed, right? So when you're committing, you're committing to your local repository. This catches errors even before it hits your local version. So it has two kinds of things. There's checks. So these can either succeed or fail. And then there are things called fixes. So pre-commit can also fix things for you if it's something simple and automatic. For example, maybe you've defined import statements in Python which you're not using. Pre-commit can automatically remove that. You don't need to worry about it. So think of rules like filters. They will sieve out the bad code, and in some cases they will just stop the process entirely. So that when you git commit, you know that your code that's being committed is of a certain minimum level of quality, which you have defined. So here's the workflow. So when you git commit, Git runs the pre-commit hook for you. So hooks are really any program. So here we have linters. They will check for things like missing imports. Your auto formatters, so put all your braces and colons and everything in the right place. Maybe you run tests. Generally, pre-commit is not used to run tests, but you could run certain tests as well. And of course, you have type checkers for dynamic likelihoods like MyPy, for example, was being shown in the previous presentation. You could run that process as part of your pre-commit. So all of these hooks run on every commit. And two options. They all pass. Great. The commit succeeds. It's in version control. Option two, the commit fails and is blocked. So there are two kinds of things, as I said. There's the fixes and the checks. So if pre-commit was able to fix something, then that's great. You can stage the changes. So what pre-commit does is, how many of you know about the Git staging area? Okay, fair enough. So essentially, Git has a staging area where Git keeps stuff before committing. So pre-commit works on stuff in the staging area. So once pre-commit fixes things for you, it's not automatically added to the staging area. So you need to stage them. So that's git add generally. Or if you're using git commit with the -a option, which auto stages everything that's changed. So that's one option. So pre-commit fixes things, you stage it, you commit it, and it works. The other option is there's some checks, for example, type checks. Pre-commit is not so hard enough yet. You don't have LLMs in pre-commit, I think. Yeah. So it won't be able to fix those issues for you. You have to go in your editor, do the changes, run git add, git commit. Pre-commit will go through the changes again. Once it's fine, it will go back to the green bit, commit succeeds. So that's the workflow. Setup, you have to install pre-commit, use your package manager. Most package managers have pre-commit installed, or you can always use pip because pre-commit is written in Python. So you can always pip install it. You navigate to your Git repo, and pre-commit comes with this nice simple sample configuration, which fixes white space and uh, does some other things, like removes new lines at the end of the file because they're doing nothing. So that's the sample config. And if you do pre-commit install, that will actually install the GitHub. So you only need to do that once. And after that, it will keep on checking your code. Uh, Next is the walkthrough. So on that'll be quick. So okay, I will go to the sample, the sample repo, which is GitHub. Never mind. I will share the links after the talk. It's also this. If you go to that repo, that's where all the material is. Okay, so we have a sample repo without pre-commit, right? And have one file called sunlog. What sunlog does is it finds the next 2 hours of sun during the conference. So let's see if it runs. So I'm using UV run. By the way, if you're not using UV, please use it. It's amazing. Okay, so the next 2 hour block of continuous sun is at 6 a.m. on Thursday. Okay, if you want to get some sun and wake up early. Okay, okay, that's the file. There's no pre-commit. So let me open it up in my editor. Yaks, that's not good. There's so many errors, right? Good. Let's see if pre-commit can catch some of these. So first of all, let me see if I have pre-commit installed. Okay, that's there. So I will do pre-commit sample config. Check the sample config. Okay, so here let's walk through what the sample config is doing. So pre-commit config YAML, there's one key called repos, and there's a list of repos. So what does a repo do? It's a collection of hooks. And hooks are essentially roots like linters of the formatters and so on, with some optional arguments. So within a repo, which is any Git repo really, there is another key called ref, which is the version of the repo, the tag of the Git repo that you're pulling from, and then you have a list of hooks. So all these hooks live within the pre-commit hooks repo, and the hooks are specified by 19. Optionally, you can have arguments as well, which we'll look into. So this is the starter configuration. So you have things like it checks for white space, it checks that the YAML is correct, for example, which is good because pre-commit is in YAML, and it checks if you're trying to add like I don't know 50 gigabyte files or something. That's usually an error if you're trying to do. You probably don't want to check 50 gigabyte files in Git. So now I will do git add pre-commit and add pre-commit configuration. Okay, wait, why didn't pre-commit run? Well, pre-commit only runs once you commit. Now, the only thing that changed here is the pre-commit config file. So, and the pre-commit config file is fine. So, in the initial run, you want to do pre-commit run and then dash pull files, and that will do an initial run of the current pre-commit configuration on the files in your repo. Okay, so that did do some things. It did training white space, so it fixed the HTML file, end of file fixer, okay, and those, let's see, what did pre-commit do? We can use git diff. So we can see there's a lot of changes which are probably white space because you can't really see the difference. But okay, fine. Let's agree with pre-commit and say git commit. So that went through. Just make sure that I install pre-commit. Okay. Uh, Great. And now what about the code? We can go to and so here is the repo for the walkthrough, and can go to the Python page, and let's say, so you have linting, which we are doing using rough, which is also great. And here you see the syntax call with args. So before that, we have mostly seen hooks with just ID, but with args, we can specify additional parameters to pass into the hook. So dash dash fix with rough check. What it does is that when it finds simple errors that it can fix, it goes ahead and fixes it. Like, for example, the previous pre-commit hook, remove the white space. This will fix things for you where it can. So let's do linting and auto formatting at the same time. So if they are from the same repository, then you can, of course, merge the two blocks together. It's okay. Okay. And let us do maybe a bit of change here so that, because again, like if I just update this pre-commit config and commit this, there's no going to be no change because I haven't actually updated the core Python file. Okay. So now we need to git diff. It shows there is a difference in sound block and there's a difference in pre-commit. So let's see if that triggers errors. Oh, okay. A lot of errors. Good. Few times when I'm good, happy to have errors. Okay, so it goes ahead and changes some things, right? So if you can see a list of hooks it's run, so green, 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 good, check, fails. But it does say files were modified by this hook. So let's first check what the files were. Maybe I'll open another terminal because I don't want to use errors. Okay. What did it do? So you can see that it started removing import statements that you didn't need, which is great. It has also done, cleaned up the code in terms of auto formatting. Look here is remove the unnecessary format string specifier. So that's it. And install auto formatting. So okay, let's. But if I try to comment, it will still fail because there are some other things which I fix. So let's quickly go through them and try to fix them. Okay, so first thing, from CSV import star. Okay, we don't need that. So that's gone. Here is another one. Sunbot 90. Okay. So I'm repeating the key, so I don't need this one, so I can remove this. Okay, so now we're going to and then avoid equally comparisons to true. Yeah, so those were three errors, and it did take three fix, three remaining. So, okay. Yeah. So you can already see that pre-commit helps you make these changes. And there are a lot of hooks you can use. So this is just linting out formatting, there's type checking, there is GitHub Actions linting and so on. And details are in the repo, which I like to. I'll go back to the talk. Okay, so main thing about pre-commitment, if you're doing it yourself, go ahead and do it, But if you're doing it as a team, talk to your colleagues about the rules you are setting up. Of course, this is a code base you're working together on. You want the code base to become better, and you have to talk and decide on what rules you want. But once you've decided, pre-commit is a great way to improve the quality of your code base. Because you can think of it as like a ratchet, right? Once you have these rules in place, every commit to the repo is going to follow those rules, which means as you add new rules or coding quality standards improve, it's enforced across the team, and even better, you can do it even without hitting GitHub, so it's very quick. The feedback loop is almost instantaneous. So one thing I'd say is that if you're using pre-commit, please have clear onboarding instructions, have a README, explain what pre-commit is, explain how to get it set up. And if you're starting with a new repo, I'd start with a sample config, maybe some basic linting. And then once you gain confidence and you see the value of pre-commit, you can start adding in lots of other things like checking for missing imports or doing linting of GitHub Actions, which is very useful. Here are some resources. Once you're done pre-committing, you can also run pre-commit in GitHub CI. So all the stuff that's happening on the local computer can happen in CI as well. There's a website, and I'm collecting common pre-commit configs. So I have some examples in Python, but for R and other languages, we don't have well versed with. Please submit a pull request or create an issue, and I will add it and compile something at the end of the year. So thank you.
Okay. And just want to announce after this session, we have to immediately rush to the main entrance for the photo. We just have time for one question from Slido. I will just read it for you. Taking linting as an example, any advice on how I decide what to check with my ID and what to check with the pre?
Take the same things with both, because sometimes your ID will miss things. And the more step you in ID, the better, because that's even more instantaneous than pre-commit, but I would definitely have the same checks as well in pre-commit if possible.
Okay, I think that was quick. So maybe one more question. Does your working tree have to be clean after the files have been Git added to be able to use pre-commit successfully? That is, do all files need to have been Git added for this to be able to apply the automatic upload?
But it works with the staging error, so I imagine it should work even if you have files which are not Git added. But yeah, try it and see.
Thank you so much.